Chances are, if you clicked on this video, that means that you're brand new to Ableton, just like how I was just a few years ago. My name is Micah Weston, and I created this Ableton Beginner's Guide just for you so that you can get started making music fast. So I hope you learned something new today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for tapping in. See you on the other side. So this is Ableton Live 12.2 right when you open it up. At first glance, it may seem a little intimidating. I know it was for me when I first opened up Ableton. It was kind of intimidating, especially this specific view. This is session view. If we click tab on our keyboard or click the horizontal icon over here, it will bring us over to arrangement view. Arrangement view is the most common view that you see most people making music in when they are using Ableton. I'm going to hit tab and come back to session view. Although arrangement view is my favorite view, session view has an awesome function as well. Session view is used for live performances. Back when I DJ'd, I used session view. But yes, you can also produce from this view. So right now in session view, I have two tracks open. I have a MIDI track and I have an audio track. So let's talk about MIDI. So right in front of me on my desk, I have what's called a MIDI controller. This is a MIDI controller 61 key lab from a company called Arturia. Although there are no internal sounds in this MIDI controller, think about this MIDI controller, this piano, as a remote control to my Ableton software, and more specifically to this MIDI track. I'm going to go ahead and arm the track. When I do that, I'm telling Ableton that I am prepared to start recording notes into Ableton on this specific track. If you notice, before I had the track armed, these icons are squares. Squares are like the universal icon for stop within music. I'm gonna arm the track again. Those squares actually transformed into record buttons. And these are our MIDI clips. You can click record on the MIDI clip, and Ableton is now recording. There's nothing happening in here yet until I start to hit notes on my MIDI keyboard. I'm gonna hit my space bar to stop the track. We have these notes, but there were no sounds playing while I was doing that. And that's because this MIDI track actually needs a MIDI instrument. So let's go to the instruments section over here in Ableton, and let's grab the meld synthesizer. Now we have sound. This is the basic function of MIDI. As well as being able to just play the notes on my MIDI keyboard, I can also draw in notes. I will click B on my typing keyboard, and now I have a pencil icon. I can type in notes just like that. I can click B again to get my arrow back. As well as having a synth loaded up, of course, you can have a drum sound loaded up. As far as your drum sounds go, over here, at the bottom left of the menu section underneath places, you can add as many folders as you would like. And this is really cool. For me, this is my drum folder. This is how you can add your own sounds to Ableton. So you can click the add folder, but you want to find wherever your sounds are, wherever your drum kits are. So mines are on my external hard drive. Okay, it's not up there. Okay, it's right here. Okay, boom. So here are my drum sounds, and you would just click open. And after you do that, your drum sounds will be here forever, and they won't ever leave unless you right click and remove from sidebar. You can just double click, and now you have your kick loaded to the highlighted MIDI track. So let's record a kick pattern. Before I do that, I want to turn on our metronome. I want a metronome going, helping me to keep time while I'm recording this kick drum. I'm gonna come up here and click this. But let's actually change the tempo right here. Take it from 120 to 115, and now we can do it. And I had one note right here that was actually outside of the 4 bars. So Ableton put that on the outside of the loop, which is cool. I can just delete that note. I'm gonna click in here and I'm going to hold Command A to select all the notes. So these notes are a little out of time. We have a few kick drum notes that are coming before the downbeats. They're coming before, and honestly, stylistically, that may be something that you're into. It's something that is perfect for your track. For today, I want to quantize these notes. I want to put these notes right on grid. I'm going to hit and hold Command U. That's a little shortcut key that moved all of these notes right on top of the grid. And now we have successfully laid our first drum track via Midi. So that's the basic function of Midi, but what about audio? Audio has a different function than Midi, of course. On this audio track, I can record vocals right into Ableton, my voice, or I can plug in a guitar straight into my audio interface, or I can grab audio samples and drag them straight onto this audio clip here. Yeah, I use this, go back to my kit and actually find one of these melodic starters, and I can just drag that straight into Ableton just like that upon the audio track. And now we have created our first scene. So you can think of the scenes as the horizontal row of sounds within Session View. We come over here and we have a play button that can play our first scene. So take note how I didn't have to arm the audio track in order for sound to come out of it, because we're just taking a piece of audio, which is this melodic starter from one of my kits, and we're dragging it straight onto the audio track. The only time that we would need to actually arm the audio track in Ableton is if we are trying to take some audio from outside of Ableton, like a singer singing upon a microphone or a guitar player playing their guitar. That's the only time that we would need to arm the audio track. And of course, at that point, we're arming it because for a microphone, we have it plugged in straight into the audio interface. For a guitar or something like that, or whatever instrument, plugged from the instrument straight into the audio interface. So remaining here on Session View, when it comes down to audio, we have a table over here where we can do things like mess with the pitch. We can also mess with the gain. We can turn it up, make it louder. We can make it quieter. And we also have our warp options over here. I love complex. That is actually the option that I tend to keep for most of my melodic samples that I work with. But we have another option called beats, tones, texture, repitch, and complex pro. All of these different warping options will actually add a different type of tonal and rhythmic characteristics to your sound. So I can mess with a few of these. Let's go to tones. Make sure to leave a comment below letting me know what you think the main differences are between the different warping options. Tones sounds like the sound is being stretched a little bit. And with tones, we have a grain size that we can mess with as well. So it's not a matter of which one is the right one to use. It's more so of what are you as the producer and artist looking for. Unlike Midi, we can reverse audio. And now for my favorite point of using audio. We can chop audio. And that is one of my favorite ways of manipulating audio, chopping it up and moving pieces around. But unfortunately, we can't chop up audio in session view. We can only do that in arrangement view. So how can I get these clips over to arrangement view from here? You can click Command A on Mac and it's gonna highlight everything that you have in session view. And now you can literally click on any clip, click and hold, hit tab, and now everything comes over in arrangement view. I'm going to deactivate this kick track by clicking 0 on my keyboard. And we're going to focus on manipulating this audio track a little bit more by chopping it up. You can click anywhere within your arrangement view and you can click Command E to slice up your tracks. But all to show you guys that working with audio is like working with blocks. And by that, you can rearrange pieces of audio. And here's where we can have a lot of fun. Even if I drag this piece of audio down here, another audio track will open up automatically. And I can just rearrange this any way that I want to. I can even have one of these three also be reversed. I can click R on my keyboard. Let's hear how that sounds. I can literally undo everything that I just did by clicking Command Z, or I can just come to the unaffected audio track portion and wait until my bracket icon shows at the edge of the clip. And I can click and drag it all the way back to the beginning, undoing everything that I just did. So here in arrangement view, there's a lot of ways to navigate this section. Up here, where the numbers are, when you put your mouse there, it will transform into a magnifying glass. If you click and hold and move your mouse up and down, you can zoom in and zoom out. And then with your trackpad or your mouse, you can just slide back and forth. So to the right of our tracks, of course, we have our track names. I can rename this track by clicking Command R on my keyboard. I can rename this sample. Actually, let me rename it guitar sample. Okay, and we have our volume control over here. We could turn it up and turn it down, of course. And we have our panning. We can move our guitar from left to right within the stereo field, and this is how that sounds. And right down here, we have our sends. Sends and returns work hand in hand. So on our tracks, we have our sends, and then down here, we have our returns. And so our return being reverb and delay. And we can add as many return tracks as we want by right-clicking, and we can just insert another return track as many times as we want. And on these return tracks, there can be as many or as little effects as you want as well. But let me explain sends. We can control how much of the incoming guitar sample audio that we send to one of these two return tracks. So the first send right here, it corresponds to A, which is our reverb. So if I click and drag up, we're sending this amount of our guitar sample to this reverb track. And we're going to now hear the reverb effect being played with this guitar sample. What I can do is actually solo this return track so you guys can hear the affected signal. If I give it some more, and let's go ahead and bring in some delay on this track as well. So you can hear the affected guitar signal very faintly underneath our sample. So here is our main track. This is the track where all of our sound from Ableton is being routed to. Most of the time when I'm making music, I will have like a Pro L limiter on this channel. I know people that sometimes they don't put anything on their master channel when they're creating. And there's some people that will have a chain of like multiple effects, multiple EQs, compressors, just doing just a little bit here and there because it adds to their overall sound. Whatever you do on your master main track is going to affect every sound within your Ableton project. Let's add a little bit more to this beat. Let's pull up a VST. So of course, Ableton has their own sounds. So over here in our menu, we have our filters up here, and this can actually help you to find specific sounds that you're looking for. Because as well as being in your plugin section, you're not just looking at virtual instruments, you're also looking at virtual effects. But right now I want to find an instrument. So with the filter, I can click on instrument, and we saw how down here it just populated and took out a few options. And while I'm here, I can just say VST3. And if I wanted to go further into filtering, I can click on the creator, which is pretty much the company of the plugin that you're looking for. I'm looking for a drum plugin called Addictive Drums by a company called XLN Audio. Addictive Drums 2, I'm going to choose the VST3 version. That's just a preference for me. And now that I have it, I can just click and drag it over here. And it opened up a brand new MIDI track, and we have our Addictive Drums loaded up. Let me go ahead and clean up this audio track, delete it. My MIDI track is of course armed, as you can see. I love the loose feeling of what I played, but what I will do is clean it up by deleting the portion that I don't want. And now within the piano roll, I can copy and paste this for the rest of the way. So I can click and drag, Command C to copy, and then Command D to duplicate it over. Just hitting D while still holding Command a couple of times. In arrangement view, let's make a loop of this region, Command L. And now let's go to our MIDI overdub button over up here at the top. It's a little plus symbol. If I don't have MIDI overdub selected, let me show you what happens while I try to record another track on the same clip. That's not what we want to happen. It's taking away all of the hi-hats that I recorded. So Command Z to undo. Let's get the MIDI overdub. So now at this point, I do want to put something on my master channel, and I'm going to just choose a basic little preset. I want to use a more basic. Let's use this punchy. So as far as your plugins and VSTs go, when you buy a plugin from a company, you're going to receive an installer. And when you go through the installation process, it's going to ask you where you want your VSTs and plugins to show up. 9 times out of 10, when you have Ableton installed to your computer, you're going to have a path where it's going to already be pre-selected for you. And that's really the case. Like, you're not going to have to really tell Ableton where to go to find it. But in case you do, so my screen is kind of cut off, but at the very top on my Mac, I click the live button, the button that says live, and now I have this drop-down menu and I can go to settings. Or I can click Command comma. So here's our settings menu. It may open up like this. It depends, but we can go down here to plugins. Here's where we can control how our plugins show up in Ableton. If you come down here, we see that use VST3 plugin systems folder. There's going to be a systems folder already created for you by Ableton that your plugins will automatically go to after you install them. Just make sure that it's turned on. You can also create a custom folder for your plugins as well. Of course, you would just need to turn it on, and you will need to have it set up in your computer where that custom folder is. So you want to make sure that this is all squared away before you begin installing any plugins to your system. After you install a plugin, by chance, if the plugin isn't showing up for whatever reason, come up here and click the rescan button. It's going to take a few seconds, maybe a couple of minutes. While we're here in settings, let's actually address a few more of these tabs over here. So let's go to themes and colors. So right now, my Ableton is in the classic medium dark theme, but this is the default OG Ableton theme. And that's not really my vibe. But every now and then I like to switch things up. So, I might switch back to the default or mess with any of the other options that they have. Yeah, we're going to just stick with that for now. Let's go to audio. This is a very important screen. A section for our audio devices, for our audio input device. Scarlett 2i2 classic OG interface. I have selected right here. This is the interface that's connected to my MacBook Pro, and I have it selected both for the input and output. So for the input is for when my microphone is being plugged into it and I'm recording, or my instrument is being plugged into it. And then the output source is for my speakers, the output, the sounds that are coming out of Ableton. So when it comes down to choosing a buffer size, the lower numbers is good to choose when you are recording. Like when you're recording a guitar, an instrument, when you're recording vocals, it's cool to go as low as you possibly can. If you go too low, depending on your computer, you may start to hear a lot of crackling and it may be a very unpleasant experience. So the key is to go as low as you can without things messing up. Of course, just adjust things to be perfect for your workflow to where you're not experiencing much latency at all. So for me, currently right now, I'm at 256. I tend to bounce between 256 and 512 when I'm just producing. People tend to say that the higher you go in sample count, the more latency you will experience. Usually people will only go up to 20, 48 samples when they're just mixing their track. At that point, they're not recording any Midi, they're not recording any audio, they're just mixing. They're tweaking knobs within plugins, and that works great for them. So that's pretty much all you need to know about the settings menu, especially starting off. So let's add some effects without worrying about the sends or returns. So I want to add some space to our guitar track, and by doing that, I'm going to actually add a reverb right onto the track. Let's use the hybrid reverb from Ableton. I can just double click that. We can also create a send and return right on the track. We can do some parallel processing. I would need to group this effect within itself. So I'm going to hit Command G, or I can right click and I can group within itself. Then I'm gonna come and click these 3 bars right here. And now we see our chain. We're going to split this track. We're gonna have one version of the track that's just the reverb, and then we're gonna have another version of the track that has no effects on it at all. There we go. And we can rename this, I'll rename it dry. So let me go ahead and solo the reverb track. And I'll bring in the dry track with it. So now we can just blend in the reverb by turning it down. So let's say that you're finished. You can click Command A once again to highlight everything. And then you can come up to File and go to Export, or Command Shift R. And now we're at our export menu. So right here on this screen, we see how we're rendering out everything that is coming out of our main track, our master track that I mentioned before. And you can honestly leave everything as is. When you get down here, you have the option to render out either an MP3 or a WAV file, or both, right? You could turn on this to have your WAV file rendered out as well. I recommend keeping it at 24-bit. You know, give it a name, and I'm gonna send this straight to my desktop. Although I exported my track, there's something very important to do, especially throughout the whole process of creating, and that is saving your process. I'm gonna do Command S. Wherever you want your files, your Ableton files to be, it can be on your local drive, or it can be on an external hard drive, of course, but you wanna make sure that you go and you create a specific folder. For the sake of this video, I'm gonna create another folder. Let's say I want my Ableton project file to be on my local drive on my desktop. I'm gonna create a folder, and I'm gonna title it, title the folder Test Ableton Projects. I gotta give the Ableton project file a name. So we can name this Ableton project file Test Beat, just like how I titled the beat when I rendered it out. And this will come up, would you like to delete the temporary files? I always do that. So delete the temporary files that were made. So this was a nice little overview for our beginners, everyone who is brand new to Ableton. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, leave me a comment. My name is Micah Weston. Thank you guys so much for tapping in today, and I hope to see you soon.